Welcome to the Synthesis of Yoga, the book that changed my life. We have reached the first part of the synthesis of yoga, the very first chapter, the four aids. We have already covered the first one, which is Shastra, the right teaching. The second one, Abhyasa, the effort that is required. And we are on the third instrument, which is Guru, the teacher. And in previous episodes, 37 and 38, we saw that the inner guide is the supreme teacher in integral yoga, who is not only inner guide, but also the world teacher who is present in everyone. And recognizing and following that inner guide is the key to integral perfection. And there are many challenges on the way of that recognition and understanding how the inner guide works. So Sri Aurobindo is continuing on that theme further. And the link to this chapter is in the description. And we are starting with paragraph number 23. And this is episode number 39. But while it is difficult for man to believe in something unseen within himself, it is easy for him to believe in something which he can image as extraneous to himself. Here is a practical challenge. Yes, of course, many people can sense the inner presence, inner guidance, and believe in that inner guidance, have faith in its guidance and its presence. But for a large number of people, it can be very difficult to even to conceive what is this inner guide and put your faith in that inner guide. Particularly when you are looking at yourself as so small and incapable and weak and all that, in that, how can you conceive an omnipresent, omniscient, divine guide within you? And it's much easier for such people to have an external representation who is not your limited small self, something greater outside you. That's one way many people would easily relate to, than trying to relate to the inner guide within oneself. So while it is difficult for man to believe something unseen within himself, it is easy for him to believe in something which he can image as extraneous to himself. Not me, it is something vaster, a universal power. That deep sense of separation is still there. I mean, that is the primary focal point from where we are looking at the world. So I am separate. And there is this universal power out there, which is guiding and everyone and everything. So something that is extraneous to me, that's much easier to relate to and believe in. So the spiritual progress of most human beings demands an extraneous support, an object of faith outside us. So many people need that. It needs an external image of God, or it needs a human representative, incarnation, prophet, or guru, or it demands both and receives them. So you externalize God. That's what the masses do. God is external, and it is conceived in hundreds of different ways. So one is to conceive God. Second is to have a representative of God, whether it is an incarnation or a prophet or a guru. These are different ways. And those who seek this way of relating to that inner guide though we are using the word inner guide for people who seek an external support, for them there is God who is outside, there is an incarnation outside, there is a prophet outside, there is a guru outside to whom you can relate to, whom you consider to be an infallible knower of truth, a guide, mentor. So you can have both God as an external conception as well as a representative of God as an external conception. So it needs an external image of God, or it needs a human representative, incarnation, prophet, or guru, or it demands both and receives them. Demands both and receives them. Very subtle statement, important statement. Demands them. The seeker is seeking, and there is a inner demand for a representative or God in one way or other, and you receive it. You receive from that grand, great wisdom or pervasive, ever present, omniscient wisdom that will give you these forms so that you can relate to. For according to the need of the human soul, the divine manifests himself as deity, as human divine, or in simple humanity, using that thick disguise which so successfully conceals the Godhead for a means of transmission of his guidance. So Godhead, all these phrases, the deity, there are many people who approach that as formless. And even to approach the formless, people use one or other symbolic forms. For example, the form of Buddha is perhaps the most widely used form to approach that which is formless. Human heart needs some or other form. So whether your philosophy speaks about emptiness, void, nothingness, formless, all that, still when it comes to a practical approach, the human mind requires a representation, whether it is directly conceived as the divine or as a representative of the divine, a human representative, it becomes a practical necessity. Even for a scientist to look at the whole nature, whole universe as that mysterious existence with whom the scientist is investigating, engaging in a connection, in an investigation to know the truths of the universe, who conceive that cosmic mystery in the materialistic framework. And that is what you would receive. As you conceive, so you receive from the divine wisdom that is all pervasive, ever present, and it will come to you depending upon the way you will be conceiving, imagining that. So, according to the need of the human soul, the divine manifests himself as deity, as human divine, or in simple humanity, using that thick disguise, which so successfully conceals the Godhead for a means of transmission of his guidance. And those who are into humanitarian action in the world, who would see the God, divinity in the people, especially those who are underprivileged, and it is in that the divine is, in whom the divine is dwelling, and you try to relate to that through such forms. So the way you would imagine so you would receive. So the divine manifests himself as a deity, as human divine, or in simple humanity, using that thick disguise which so successfully conceals the Godhead. So all these are disguises, thick veils. Behind the veil is the Godhead, the divinity who is guiding all, who can reach out to you and use any of these means as a means of transmission of the teaching. Beautiful, isn't it? Once we understand that mystery, that which cannot be limited to any one name, any one form, which is beyond all names, all forms, once we are able to relate to that fundamental conception, and then to see that the names and forms that we are using is only a limited name and form that is suitable for our individual journey and our individual mental structure, suitable for a particular individual or a particular group of people. And it would vary from group to group, individual to individual. And yet it is the same Godhead who will guide everyone according to the way they approach the divine. The Hindu discipline of spirituality provides for this need of the soul the conceptions of the Ishta Devata, the avatar, and the Guru. Three ways Sri Aurobindo is bringing in. Ishta Devata. Devata is the deity. Ishta is your favorite deity, your chosen deity. Your heart has found this form relatable, and you have the affinity, a natural affinity, that is Ishta Devata. In India, you will find hundreds and thousands of various forms of deities. The divine is conceived as formless, transcending one, and yet it is given endless variety of forms according to the preference, the way an individual would approach. You may approach as formless, and if it is into form, then within form, male form, female form. If it is within male form, then if it is Vishnu form, Shiva form, or Brahma is formless. So if it is Vishnu form, within Vishnu form, there is the avatars of Vishnu. So there is a whole spectrum. If it is feminine form, then there are various forms of goddesses, and within that itself, various aspects of the goddesses. So there is an endless variety of approach that you will find in India. And it is not necessary that you have to study everything. That's not at all needed. It is what is your natural inclination and what is your Ishta Devata, what is your favorite name and form that works for you. Often people get confused by this endless variety of Godheads in India. And also because there is this whole range of Puranic stories where you will find the gods getting angry and behaving more like humans, and the battles and testing of the humans and all that. So often I have come across people who feel worried and concerned. See, I am praying to this particular Godhead, I'm going to this particular temple, this particular deity, but there are so many other deities. Will they get jealous or upset if I have not paid my obeisance to those deities? So don't worry about any of this. What is an individual's personal, natural affinity? And this affinity largely depends upon your inner processes. What is the current stage of your evolution? What is the psycho-spiritual need of your inner development? And accordingly, the archetype would reveal for you whether it is in male forms, female form, or some other variants of this, whatever be the natural inclination, that is the doorway through which you would enter. So, Hindu discipline of spirituality provides for this need of the soul by the conceptions of the Ishtadevata, the avatar, and the Guru. It could be Ishtadevata, it could be an avatar, or it could be Guru. Guru is seen as a dispeller of darkness who is also the representative of the divine, a doorway through which you enter the great mystery of the divine existence. So all these are possibilities available. It's a whole spectrum that is available, and not to limit yourself to any one or get confused by seeing the whole variety. So what is drawing your heart at this point of time? Which aspect of the divine is calling you to explore? That is the magnet that is gently drawing you. And the divine is Ananda Guna with all the qualities. The divine can reach you through any means. But what is your chosen form, name, and accordingly you can receive. By the Ishtadevata, the chosen deity is meant not some inferior power, but a name and form of the transcendent and universal Godhead. So in the Hindu pantheon, you will find the whole variety and even sometimes presented as a whole hierarchy. But we must understand it's like in a hologram. Every part, even if you have a small part of it, it will still have the whole. So there is a transcendent and universal divine that is one, but who is present in every tiny little thing, in whatever be the form and name of it. And it is that which is present in everything, whatsoever be the variations of the form or the name. So by the Ishtadevata, the chosen deity is meant not some inferior power, but the name and form of the transcendent and universal Godhead. Almost all religions either have as their base or make use of some such name and form of the divine. And we can see it across the religions. All religions, even those who profess no God, they all use some or other name and form to represent, because it's a practical necessity of the human mind, and particularly when you have to communicate to the larger collective life. And storytelling become the easier means to communicate. And in stories, there are characters, and characters would acquire forms, personalities. So all that are historic developments we will find across the world, a wide range of conceptions. So almost all religions either have as their base or make use of some such name and form of the divine. Its necessity for the human soul is evident. And here is one of the challenges. There is a need for it, but when the human mind and heart become narrow and small, that is where you misconceive in terms of only my particular form of the deity or the name is the right one, everything else is wrong. And this is where it falls off into fanaticism. God is all and more than all. Important statement. God is all existence, with its endless variety of forms of creation. whether it is human creation or nature's creation, the endless variety, everything is that, the divine. And yet, it is more than all, because the divine transcends the entire creation. It is transcendent as well as universal, and also the individual. So we must see it from that broad perspective. God is all and more than all. But that which is more than all, how shall man conceive? That is the practical problem. And even the all is at first too hard for him. Even to conceive that this endless variety of forms in creation, all this is that one divine. It is, even that is difficult. More difficult is to conceive something that transcends everything. And conceiving all as the divine is difficult. For he himself, in his active consciousness, is a limited and selective formation and can open himself only to that which is in harmony with his limited nature. Every human being is a limitation. The infinity limits itself into a tiny, finite frame of reference. And it is within that we human beings in the evolutionary process wakes up. Even when we wake up within the framework of that limitation, it is practically impossible for that limited window to look at the entire creation and to imagine that this whole existence of diversity is nothing but that one divine. It's very, very difficult. You can only admit that which is resonating with what you believe in, your belief systems, your worldview, what you have been conditioned to understand, to comprehend, to process, to assimilate. Everything else is outside the scope of it. Even when we look at our senses, our eyesight can only take a small spectrum of light. Out of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, we can only receive a small bandwidth. Same with hearing, same with every sense. Our entire cognitive faculty is limiting the infinite into a finite window through which we are able to receive a little bit of the infinity. So, conceiving the totality as the divine, even when a mental conception is possible, experientially arriving at it is extremely difficult, because our instrumental nature is narrow and limited by its frame of reference. So it can only receive that limited set of vocabulary, imagery, conceptions, that which it is used to. And within that, it can conceive. But that which is more than all, how shall man conceive? And even the all is at first too hard for him. For he himself, in his active consciousness, is a limited and selective formation and can open himself only to that which is in harmony with his limited nature. So only that which is in harmony with what we are within our limited nature, that is all what we can receive. There are things in all which are too hard for his comprehension or seem too terrible for his sensitive emotions and covering sensations. Because we ourselves feel to be so small in this vast universe, and it is too scary to conceive this entire vast complexity of nature, the terrible aspects of nature. When a thunderbolt hits, and destroys, or an earthquake comes and destroys, a storm comes and wipes out things. It's hard to imagine this too is God. Our sensitive, tender emotions conceive God, especially in the form of all love, all wisdom. That's much easy. But when it is the dimension of power, that's especially the terrible side of the divine existence, that's really, really hard for the tender human heart to conceive. We would prefer soft, gentle Godhead, not this mighty power. So there are aspects of the divine that's really, really hard for little human heart to conceive. And this is a practical challenge. In the Gita, there is the Vishwarupa Darshanam. Arjuna is seeing the true form of the divine through Krishna, who is showing himself as this vast cosmic being who is behind the entire war and who is also the destroyer of things. So to see that terrible form, our tender little human heart find it too scary, too difficult. We want a God to be sweet and gentle and all blessing, and tathastu. So there are things in the all which are too hard for his comprehension or seem too terrible to his sensitive emotions and covering sensations. It's very easy to feel the empathy towards a deer than a tiger who is killing the deer. In reality, both are two sides of this one life. But our sensitive emotions would feel the empathy towards the underdog, the underprivileged. And that sentimentality we conceive, we mistake for the true love and compassion. And compassion includes all. It includes the tiger who kills and the deer who is getting killed. Both are held in the same love, which is sustaining the entire ecosystem, holding the whole. There is destruction and creation simultaneously happening. And in that, there is something that is evolving and expressing. And while it is easy to imagine the tender side, it's hard to conceive the difficult side. There are things in the all which are too hard for his comprehension, or it seemed too terrible to his sensitive emotions and covering sensations. While it is very comfortable and easy to conceive the divine as all love and all wise, when it comes to the dimension of power, it's very difficult to relate to the divine in the destructive mood. When there is a thunderbolt destroying things, when there is an earthquake or a powerful storm destroying things, it's hard to conceive that this too is divine action in nature. In nature, there are these terrible moods, destructive and creative. The creative spring, the beauty of the spring is very easy to relate. But the terrible side of her action, it's very hard. So if God is all, how do we conceive these aspects of the God, of the divine, in our conception? We would prefer something soft, gentle, relatable, that is comfortable to our emotions, our sensitive emotions and covering sensations. We feel ourselves to be too small in front of this gigantic universal power. And we want something that is approachable, relatable. And this is a practical problem. So there are things in the all which are too hard for his comprehension, or seem too terrible for his sensitive emotions and cowering sensations. Or simply, he cannot conceive as the divine, cannot approach or cannot recognize something that is too much out of the circle of his ignorant and partial conceptions. All of us are born into a social context, and we are brought up in that social context, and it limits our scope of language, concepts, perceptions. We get conditioned. Very birth itself is the infinity limiting itself into a finite human form. And we don't remember anything. And then we have this tiny little window which is colored by social conditioning. And it is through that lens we are looking at reality. Even when we are seeking the divine, we are seeking still within the framework and the window that is provided by the cultural context in which we have grown up. Whether you come from the window of there is no God, or whether you come through the window of there is God, but God has no form, or you come from the window of there is God, God is a male form, or you say God is a female form, whatsoever be the way you have been brought up with. Whether it is a prophet, the formless, the form, emptiness, whatsoever be the framework, it is through that framework we are approaching the infinite, the universal, and the transcendent. And according to the individual's limitation, that would come and reveal and accommodate according to the individual's limited possibility. So he cannot conceive as the divine and cannot approach or cannot recognize something that is too much out of the circle of his ignorant and partial conceptions. Anything beyond our limited window, we cannot even perceive. Even at a sensory level, we know that our eyes, our vision is able to scan only a small spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum. There is the whole vast body of light of which our eyes can recognize only a small bandwidth. So is hearing. Out of the infinity, there is a finite small bandwidth we can perceive. And this same limitation is there in the entire cognitive system. And it is within that window we receive a little of the infinity in whatever be the name and form through which we conceive that. So it is necessary for him to conceive God in his own image or in some form that is beyond himself, but consonant with his highest tendencies and seizable by his feelings or his intelligence. Seizable by his feelings. Only what our range of feelings can receive and accept, and only what our intelligence can conceive, only that can be received through our cognitive window. And anything that is beyond the framework is not understandable, comprehensible. And because of this, often we see the fanaticism. What I have conceived, my window, my reality is the only truth, everything else is false. And this is where the religious fanaticism or even scientific orthodoxy and fanaticism come into the picture. Because only that which is science revealed is true, everything else is false. That becomes another dogma. Or if it is a particular philosophy, whether it is communism or any other philosophy, that you say this is the only truth, everything else is false. And you have that little window through which you look at things and tend to become bound to it. So we must be aware of this framework limitations in which we live and be open to all kinds of conceptions, at least for others to approach the divine in their own way. Each individual would require their own limited conception. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to come into contact and communion with the divine. We need some or other name and form to come in touch with that which transcends everything, includes everything, permeates everything. Hard to conceive, and yet we must have some or other conception. It's a practical necessity of the human mind and human heart to approach that which is eternal, timeless, beyond everything. Even then, his nature calls for a human intermediary so that he may feel the divine in something entirely close to his own humanity and sensible in a human influence and example. So, one thing is to conceive the divine who transcends everything, who permeates everything. That's not enough. You would still need someone who is closer to you, much more relatable, more human, a human intermediary who can be a direct influence in your life. So, even then, his nature calls for a human intermediary. Nature calls for our human nature, our heart and its needs, our mind and its needs would call for a human intermediary so that he may feel the divine in something entirely close to his own humanity. He may feel the divine in something entirely close to humanity. And we can find this in India. Why the gurus are revered and worshipped, because guru become that human intermediary doorway, the representative, where you feel close, intimate, and very relatable. And this dimension of the spiritual progress and spiritual journey very much visible in the path of love and devotion more than other two paths, because the guru become the personification of the divine for the seeker, and therefore the very worship of the guru we find very, very common in India. Those who are on the path of knowledge would still have that relationship with the philosophical dimension, the knowledge dimension of the guru. Yet there is a deep underlying love and faith that holds them, binds them together in that journey. So even then, his nature calls for a human intermediary so that he may feel the divine in something entirely close to his own humanity and sensible in a human influence and example. We tend to idolize people. We admire people because we see certain qualities in them. Essentially, it is the quality that we find in the people that is shining through the people, the divine qualities that are shining through the people. That is what we are attracted by, admire, and get influenced by. And there is a transmission of inspiration that happens. This call is satisfied by the divine, manifest in a human appearance, the incarnation, the avatar, Krishna, Christ, Buddha. So Sri Aurobindo is bringing in three powerful collective memory: Krishna, Christ, Buddha, human intermediaries in whom the divine light was shining on earth, historic figures. So this call is satisfied by the divine manifest in a human experience, the incarnation, the avatar, Krishna, Christ, Buddha. Or if this is too hard for him to conceive, the divine represents himself through a less marvelous intermediary, the prophet or teacher. Avatar is a direct incarnation of the divine who knows that I am not just a prophet representing, but I am that incarnate divine power acting in the world. The less glorious, marvelous intermediary is a prophet or a teacher, where you know that the divine exists. I'm only an instrument, spokesperson, who is not an avatar, who is not fully identified with the divine self. So the divine represents himself through a less marvelous intermediary, prophet or teacher. For many who cannot conceive or are unwilling to accept the divine man are ready to open themselves to the supreme man, terming him not incarnation but world teacher or divine representative. One is divine man, a man who has realized his divinity and united with the divine and knows himself as inseparably one with the divine. And this may be very hard for people to accept. But it is much easier to accept someone who is only a representative, who is a symbolic representation. The divine exists beyond the individual, beyond the symbol, transcending everything. This is only a human representation. So you're ready to open themselves to the supreme man. Man, here again, is a supreme man, somebody who is not ordinary, somebody who has gone beyond the ordinariness, but not yet a divine man, but a supreme man who is representing, terming not him not as incarnation, but world teacher or divine representative. You see someone as a world teacher or as a divine representative. This also is not enough. A living influence, a living example, a present instruction is needed. Aurobindo is coming closer and closer to our daily life reality, because all that was presented as the avatar, air prophets, it is still far away in time. We need someone who is very close to us, a living influence, a living example, a present instruction. There had been instructions in the past, divine revelations in the past that were suitable for that time period. In today's time period, where there is artificial intelligence and all this technological explosion that is unfolding in front of us with the internet and social media, and in this context, what is the present instruction? Because the old books will not be referring to any of this. So there is a time spirit that reveals itself in the given time and space. So a living influence, a living example, a present instruction is needed so that it is translated into modern language that is much more relatable. For it is only the few who can make the past teacher and his teaching, the past incarnation and his example and influence, a living force in their lives. Only a few can actually make the past teacher or past incarnation as a living power, a living influence in their life. So it is possible, but only a few people can do that. Connecting back to, for example, Sri Krishna. We see that in Sri Aurobindo's life, Sri Krishna was a major influence. Sri Krishna was teaching him directly. And we see it in his writings. And such examples are very rare. I'm not saying there are no devotees. We have millions and millions of people who are devotees. But being a devotee is one thing, but really having the living power of Sri Krishna in your life as a guide, as a mentor, as a teacher, and gradually you're merging into that identity, that is exceptionally rare. So it is only the few who can make the past teacher and his teaching the past incarnation and his example and influence a living force in their lives. For this need also, the Hindu discipline provides the relation of the guru and the disciple. So in India, this relationship plays a very crucial key role, the relationship between the guru and the disciple, which is essentially going back to that fundamental essential relationship between the divine and the seeker. So the guru may sometimes be the incarnation or world teacher. That's a possibility. A guru can be an incarnation or a world teacher. But it is sufficient that he should represent to the disciple the divine wisdom, convey to him something of the divine ideal, or make him feel the realized relation of the human soul with the eternal. So it's not necessary that a guru to be an incarnation or a world teacher. It is sufficient that the guru has that inner realization, so that the relationship of the human soul with the divine is present in the guru, and who represents that wisdom coming from that experience. And so it is sufficient that he should represent to the disciple the divine wisdom, convey to him something of the divine ideal. So there is a wisdom and ideal to be conveyed, or make him feel the realized relation of the human soul with the eternal. So Guru can give a taste of what it means to feel, to be with someone who has that inner realization with the eternal. There is a living influence of such a teacher, not just representing an ideal and a wisdom, but also the resultant radiant force of such teachers. It's not necessary they are to be an incarnation or a world teacher. So the guru may sometimes be the incarnation or world teacher, but it is sufficient that he should represent to the disciple the divine wisdom, convey to him something of the divine ideal, or make him feel the realized relation of the human soul with the eternal. The sadhaka of the integral yoga will make use of all these aids according to his nature. But it is necessary that he should shun their limitations and cast from him that exclusive tendency of egoistic mind which cries, "My God, my incarnation, my prophet, my guru," and opposes it to all other realization in a sectarian or a fanatical spirit. So if you're a follower of the integral yoga Sri Aurobindo is bringing in, you should be comfortable to use any of these means, whether it's the conception of the divine who is universal and transcendent, whatever be that conception, or the incarnation of that divine, or a world teacher, or the guru who is human representative, much closer. All these are possibilities open to the seeker. But the exclusive tendency of the human mind to reject every other approaches to the divine as false and proclaim as my God, my incarnation, my prophet, my guru, these things must be avoided, eliminated from this ego-bound, limited human perception. That is what makes things into a sectarian movement that will destroy not just your individual realization, but also social development and the flowering of God in humanity. It brings the fanatic spirit. So the sadhaka of the integral yoga will make use of all these aids according to his nature. It again is according to the nature of the individual. What type of a person you are, what is the context through which you have evolved, grown, and what is the name and form that works for you. Accordingly, you conceive, approach the divine. But it is necessary that he should shun their limitations, because every name and form and approach has its limitation, and cast from himself that exclusive tendency of egoistic mind which cries, my God, my incarnation, my prophet, my guru. And we can see it very commonly. People, they are so much in love with their guru, which is wonderful to be completely in love and admiration of your guru, your teacher, your prophet, your God. But when that becomes sectarian, when you're not able to value other people's approaches, other people's conceptions, there it becomes narrow, limited. And when you get into a criticizing mode of everything else is wrong, this is the most perfect for you. But when you insist and push that down upon other people, then we get fanaticism, we get sectarianism, and which is rampant in the world, and this is what we need to consciously overcome. All sectarianism, all fanaticism must be shunned, for it is inconsistent with the integrity of the divine realization. Inconsistent with the integrity of the divine realization. On the contrary, the sadhaka of the integral yoga will not be satisfied until he has included all other names and forms of deity in his own conception, seen his own Ishtadevata in all others, unified all avatars in the unity of him who descends in the avatar, wielded the truth in all teachings into the harmony of the eternal wisdom. So whatever be your particular Ishtadevata through which you approach the divine, as you go deep, as you enter into deeper and vaster experience, increasingly into universal experiences, there you must enter into the experience of seeing your Ishtadevata in all other forms of the Devata, or all other forms of the Devata in your Ishtadevata. And you can see it in India. Various schools approaching the divine through various forms. For example, those who are entering through Sri Ganesha, and you will find through Ganesha, they will be entering into every other forms and realizing within Ganesha every other aspects of the divine. Or you enter through Shiva, and you will find within Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, Ganesha, Parvati, Shakti, all aspects will be realized through that. Or you enter through the Divine Mother, Divine Shakti, and in her you will find every other aspects of the divine merging and becoming one. Unless everything gets synthesized, you will still have fragmentation within yourself. So that which is descending into the particular mold of expression, once you're able to relate to that and experience that, and you will see that finding its expression in everything. So the sadhaka of the integral yoga will not be satisfied until he has included all other names and forms of deity in his own conception. All other names and forms of deity in his own conception. Seen his own Ishtadevata in all others, unified all avatars in the unity of him who descends in the avatar. So in Indian Hindu lineage, you will find the story of avatars of Vishnu. So you need to, whether it is Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, and all the previous ones, you need to unify all avatars. Not only all avatars are to be unified, but you need to also see who is descending into the avatars and wield the truth in all teachings into the harmony of the eternal wisdom. There is the eternal, timeless wisdom that gets revealed periodically in different ways according to the need of the hour. As in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna would say, Sambhavami yuge yuge, I would come and manifest in every yuga, because every epoch, every yuga would require its own revelation, its own expression. Though the wisdom is eternal, it would take on new forms. There is that which is timeless and eternal, but within time and space, there is a temporal expression, a limited expression suitable for a particular time period, particular social context, particular evolutionary stage of the society and the individuals. So the divine would reveal in new forms, and old forms gets fossilized over a period of time. And yet it is important for us to look into the old forms and understand the essential truth behind it and not be bound by the outer form, and know the eternal wisdom behind the forms. Nor should he forget the aim of these external aids, which is to awaken his soul to the divine within him. All these are external aids. Aim of the external aid is to awaken his soul to the divine within him. Awaken his soul to the divine within him. Remember, we are in this chapter called Four Aids. And Sri Aurobindo had been covering about the teacher, the guru. Guru, the teacher, all these are external aids to eventually wake you up to the inner guide, the divinity within. So that's what we need to keep always in mind. Nor should he forget the aim of these external aids, which is to awaken his soul to the divine within him. Nothing has been finally accomplished if that has not been accomplished. If you have not realized the inner divinity, practically nothing has been accomplished. Even if you have all the external aids, all the proliferation of your conceptions of the deities or whatever it is, if you have not arrived at that inner realization, nothing has been practically realized or accomplished. It is not sufficient to worship Krishna, Christ, or Buddha without. If there is not the revealing and the formation of the Buddha, the Christ, or Krishna in ourselves. That's the key. It doesn't matter whether you approach through Buddha, Christ, or Krishna. Unless you have not realized the Buddha within yourself, Christ within yourself, Krishna within yourself, nothing has been really accomplished. So it is not sufficient to worship Krishna, Christ, or Buddha without, if there is not the revealing and the formation. One is the knowledge getting revealed. Other is the formation. The divine consciousness forms within you. Formation of the Buddha, the Christ, Krishna in ourselves. The Buddhahood forms within. The Christhood forms within. The Krishnahood forms within. Realize a living power within. That is necessary. Without it, it is just an external means. You are still using the aids but not yet arrived at a realization. And all other aids equally have no other purpose. Each is a bridge between man's unconverted state and the revelation of the divine within him. So all these aids are just bridges between an unconverted nature of human existence. We are products of evolution. We have not yet evolved and become the divine. and there is a limited, distorted existence. And there is a bridge for that existence to connect with our true existence, our divine possibility. So all these aids are just bridges. And all other aids are equally have no other purpose. Each is a bridge between man's unconverted state and the revelation of the divine within him. Revelation of the divine. And also in the previous line, as Sri Aurobindo mentioned, the formation. There is a bridge that connects you to that which is eternal, timeless, and it will take birth within you. It will reveal, it will form, and it will transform you. And we need to keep in mind, these are all aids towards that inner realization. So with that, we come to the end of our episode. Thank you for being with me in this journey. Please do share your insights and see you next week.